Alright, we are recording, continuing in Just Cause 2, which I have no idea where it's going to put me. Because if you remember last time, the game crashed on. But, I mean, it does autosave, so I don't think I would have lost anything. And I'm just looking over the stuff that I got to talk about. I got some stuff, including the shiny applet stuff. I guess leave that for later, even though I mean, personally, that's more interesting. But, no, I think the Embracer Group stuff, it's like, I don't think anyone saw that. Well, okay, the people involved would have seen it coming, but I wouldn't have. Jeez, who would have thought that Embracer Group, or anyone really, let's actually try to get that stuff, would have been able to purchase 3 studios from Square Enix and multiple IP, including Deus Ex, Thief, and Tomb Raider. Who would have ever thought that would happen? So for those of you that don't know, just in case, Embracer Group, which previously was THQ Nordic, but it was kind of confusing because they had both THQ Nordic owner and THQ Nordic publisher, and so they decided to make the owner the basically holding company, I think it technically be considered. That might not actually be accurate, but that they would become Embracer Group. And they own a lot. They own Koch Media, Deep Silver, Coffee Stain, THQ Nordic, Handy Games, and plenty more. I mean, they own a lot. And the thing is, they're kind of, doing right by some of it seems. I mean, it's Tomb Raider's, that's doing fine as a franchise currently. But Deus Ex has kind of died, which is disappointing. Mankind Divided. It was good. It wasn't a great game. I actually do want to replay it and Human Revolution, which are the 2 Adam Jensen games, the 2 newer ones. But it's like, I could see Embracer Group being like, yeah, you want to, make those into... You want to make new games in there? Okay, we can do that. Because remember, I mean, this is the company that bought up a lot of the IP. Oh, and there were also 50 IP. Well, over 50 back catalog IP that they also got from Square Enix. Yeah, that, bought up a lot of the THQ IP, and what did we get from that? Well, let's see. They did the remaster, the War Master Edition of Darksiders, also brought out Darksiders 3, which I did enjoy. It not always a balance, but that was still a pretty good game, pretty fun game. I liked it better than Darksiders 2, if I remember correctly. I think one of the remasters of Red Faction Guerrilla was under them. I could be misremembering on that, though. Titan Quest, though, how that's been resurrected, that's them. I'm sure there's more I'm just not thinking of. Oh, Gothic. Gothic is them. Technically Saints Row is, because Deep Silver is owned by them, and after Agents of Mayhem, that series seemed unhealthy. As in, like, its prospects weren't. Not the series itself. But now we're getting, a reboot of the series. So, I mean, I think that there's, it's a fair chance that we might see Deus Ex having a future thanks to this. Thief as well, which that is... So I've only ever played the new one that I also reviewed. And for people that know the original games, I know I've seen some people say that the originals are better. So I don't know the originals. I think I do have them. I just haven't played them. But the part, it still sticks with me. What I felt was like the best part in the new Thief was, I think it was an asylum you break into. Because it just had a different tone, a different feel to it, and I just thought it was much more interesting than the rest of the game. It was such an outlier in that game, though. But I'm just wondering if that's... If the original games had something more like that. Why is there just...
Requesting air support!
Not in good shape. I also don't know why it just refused to, like, do any damage. I should have been doing damage, too. Wait, what? Okay. I was not expecting that. But I just, going back to the Thief stuff, if it is the case that it is, in fact, that the originals are more like that one section, then I would definitely be more interested in playing them. Because, I mean, and I can't hope they were. It was so much more interesting, and I felt more engaged with that than in other sections. Oh, wow, this is a rare one. You do not typically find the Chippewas that also have rockets on them. So it's basically the other helicopter, but with greater maneuverability. A lot greater. So yeah, and also the 3 studios, Crystal Dynamics. So that's they've been doing the Tomb Raider, the new Tomb Raider trilogy. They've done some other things as well that it's, you know, like they've earned some respect and credibility in recent years. That they know what they're doing. Eidos Montreal and Square Enix Montreal were the 3 studios. 8 global locations, though, are going to be transferred as part of this, and was it some 1,100 employees? Man, they really want me dead, don't they? Alright. I could do the mission. I feel more like trying to take this place out. Since I got this helicopter, at least for the time being. It's falling apart, though. Yeah, that would make sense for the next thing. Which is kind of a weird one. So, and I saw this today. Ian Cuttress shared it on his Twitter account. The SEC, so that's Security and Exchange Mission, stock market stuff. They Was it that... Can it be said they actually charged them with? Or I don't remember. But they exacted a fine from NVIDIA of 5.5 million, which to NVIDIA is probably nothing. But because back in 2018, you know, you had the whole, ooh, this is good for me. The charge, the claim was that NVIDIA lied to investors concerning the heck? Oh, there's a military base over there. Okay. I should actually attack this. There it is. Okay, I'm safe now. Ish. But it was that NVIDIA lied, was the claim, about where the sales were concerning their GPU. That they said, and I even remember this at the time, that people were like, I don't think so. But that NVIDIA claimed that so much of the GPU sales, the GeForce sales to be more specific, so gaming, were actually for gaming versus being for cryptocurrency. The thing is, those are very different markets and have a very different impact, but have very different outlooks on them. So lying about that is a big deal. That would in fact really disrupt. Oop, that's not good. Would be disruptive to how people think they need to value your company or stock. Because a gaming GPU, you expect somebody to have that for years. Whereas for cryptocurrency, or if nothing else, you'd expect they may have it for years and they could resell it, but it would resell for closer to, hang on, the original value, because gaming doesn't really damage a GPU. But cryptocurrency, when not done correctly, cryptocurrency mining, when not done correctly, can really damage a GPU because it's being run at such a high load basically all the time. Which is why there was some cryptocurrency places that they even developed special reviruses specifically to cut down on voltage and thermals and such. So those would actually potentially live longer than some game card, I could believe, though you need to be able to undo the modification. But anyway, it's still with cryptocurrency stuff, once cryptocurrency crashes, then you're not selling as well. You know, gaming is basically a constant load on the market. You know, you're constantly having people wanting to buy to play video games. You're not always having that with cryptocurrency, and it's cryptocurrency, oh, it crashes, I might as well sell this to try to get some money out of it. And now that secondhand market depresses the new sales. So, yeah, that's there's reason why you would lie, but it's also illegal. And NVIDIA basically said we neither admit nor deny the charge here, we'll just pay the fine. Which, as I said, was 5.5 million. And it's just one of those, yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. I also feel like, just as a point of reminder, when AMD, to my knowledge, they didn't lie, but they did make the wrong bets, I guess would be the way to put it. This is back in the R9 200 series days, concerning cryptocurrency. because basically what happened was there was a huge demand for their GPUs. So what they did is they produced all they could. And once cryptocurrency crashed, suddenly they had a whole bunch of new GPUs that they couldn't sell, and a whole bunch of used GPUs that were flooded that had flooded the market, but they were also damaged. I don't remember who it was that made the point that. Oops. Okay. That actually really hurt an AMD a lot. The fact that the cryptocurrency GPUs flooded the market, because the damage that had been done to those GPUs, everybody was just blaming on AMD, not the fact that no, you were buying a secondhand card from somebody that basically didn't care about maintaining the card. And the person was basically making the point that the 200 series is actually a lot better GPU than many people realize. It really was just AMD should have made a different decision, and it did actually really come to hurt them because they had to write off such a giant loss from that. Because suddenly, all that stuff, all the GPUs that they couldn't sell were just a loss for them. I mean, it was not good for them. It was really bad. But that's why, basically, ever since, they've been a lot more cautious. So they won't just mass produce GPUs when the main selling point, or when cryptocurrency is too strong with it. That hasn't been the issue of late. It's been more that all demand has been really high, and supply has not been able to be satisfied. But it's like a few years ago, before you had the whole the supply crunch stuff of today. It's like, hey, why aren't they producing more? Because they could be selling them. It's like, because they know that they don't want to flood the market. They do want to control it more closely. And that's exactly what NVIDIA chose not to do. And then the SEC claims and has fined them that they did in fact lie. So. Oh, there it is. I see. Yeah. Cryptocurrency stuff is awesome. Especially when you consider that there's no intrinsic value to any of it. Because the value comes from the work to do the math involved with the ledger. Which means then that the ledger is designed to be hard to do, but the moment you get hardware that's better able to manage it, or somehow a better algorithm for processing the ledger, the value will fall. Which is why they've had to, every now and then, I think both Bitcoin and Ethereum have every now and then had to change the algorithm to make it more difficult in order to increase the value. It's just... yeah. Don't get me wrong, I like blockchain. I like what that actually involves. It's very clever technology, but the way it's applied for cryptocurrency, it doesn't make sense. But I'd be good with, some blockchain just tracking stuff. but then I'm also weirdly obsessive about tracking my money. Like, I keep track of how much cash and change I have. Okay, I'm weird. I know I'm. So it's like being able to keep track of all my transactions that way, that's fine, but it's like, that's not a monetary value for me. That's, you know, just... Man, somebody really stripped a car right there. But yeah, that's just, you know, a value to me, and it's one of those whole, you know, bringing order to chaos kind of things. Well, sort of. I mean, it's not exactly to bring order to chaos, but it's so that, you know, I know what I've got and know what I can and cannot spend, things like that. We can talk about Visa. V-E-S-A, not V-I-S-A. Even though I was just talking about my... Video Electronics and Software Association? Is that it? I don't remember. But it has... they're the organization that, you know, like, sets various standards, like the adaptive sync standard that's used for a whole bunch of stuff. Is the basis of FreeSync, definitely, but also G-Sync, actually. It's just NVIDIA's implementation of it is highly proprietary. But some of the underlying principles are actually what were set down by the adaptive sync. Well, they announced 2 standards this week. One, I think, is actually just adaptive sync. The other is media sync. And the idea is that there's standards and specifications for the adaptive sync technology, but the adaptive sync one is targeting games. So it has, what was it, a minimum to the refresh range that's applied in 60 and a maximum. Well, the lowest maximum is 144 hertz. The highest minimum is 60. So the refresh range has to be at least 60 to 144. And there's other things there as well. Whereas media sync is from 48 to 60. It's meant for, you know, playing back media from across the world without any jitter.
The Selamat Grove. You have heard of it, Scorpio? It is the Eulah's most sacred place, the burial ground of our elders. But disaster hangs in the air like smoke. An international lugging company is preparing to desecrate this place with their machines. We cannot allow it. I want you to go there and help my brave Sardadus tear down their sawmill and kill their foreman. May our ancestors give you their blessing.
So, in the US, a lot of what we do... meet
up with my Eulah brethren.
Is a multiple of either 30 FPS, 24 FPS, or 29 point... I'm trying to remember what it is. Just shy of both of them. But for the most part, you know, like 30 and 24. But in Europe, you have like 15, 20, well, 25. I don't remember if 30 is necessarily. No, 30 isn't. But 50, so like 25 and 50 would definitely be used there. And the idea with media sync is to be able to cover that. So like my television, which is a years old, it's 120 hertz. It doesn't actually like run at 120 hertz as far as in like the test system hooked up to it. It doesn't get to send at 120 hertz. Like it sends at 60. But the thing is, it can do 60 times 2, 120. 24 times 24 times 5, sorry, I'm just distracted, is 120. and stuff like that. So it's able to ensure that the frames, the media frame rate aligns with the output. That's what media sync would also be ensuring. Though it would be doing it with a variable refresh rate, whereas, like the 120 hertz panel is,
Enemy of our people, desecrator of our land. Let his blood be.
there we go, is, more of a brute force, method, but it works.
Thank you.
It is also the case, though, for me, that, and now I just lost it. Oh, yeah. I do have the television's, de-judder algorithm turned on, but just to the lowest. You can basically just enable it, and does its job quite well. I'm just trying to think. Oh, yeah, one other thing I can mention. So, Dying Light, not Dying Light 2, I will get to Dying, but Dying Light has. Please let me just land here safely. It doesn't look like anyone's. It got a free update, and that included adding the Diesel Punk content, which does look kind of fun. You get a chainsaw. It kind of makes me wish I were actually playing the game. So, Dying Light 1. I don't think I'll bother going back to Dying Light 1. I've played it through it a little bit now. But what else they did that is really cool is, man, it's always fun to hear the Papa game.
The international corporation Seabreeze Lumber Company, who have been so helpful in the development of the Panawan Jacaranda trade, were today attacked by members of the savage tribal Eula boys who, in a press communique, have stated that the lumber company desecrates the ancient burial places. This is of course complete nonsense, as the Eula boys also claim that they are the original inhabitants of Panau, and that the country is their birthright.
Okay. They also... I mean, the game is 7 years old now. I think that's what I saw. But they've decided, you know what? Everybody that has it gets a free upgrade to the Enhanced Edition, which means it gets a lot of the DLC. I don't remember exactly how much, but it does include, like, the following expansion, which is an actual expansion. There were two other... Bozak Horde... Oh, I can't remember what the other one... Is it one or two? Well, Bozak Horde, though, was Horde mode. So when I did the complete experience review, I didn't bother with that. I also was running out of time. But there was also another one that was, like, to go into a jail in Huron. It was like, that is included, and also, as I did say, the following, which is a full-on expansion, you're in a different part, continues the story, stuff like that. And I did enjoy that. I think, I'm trying to remember, I think I still like the base game better than the following. But, yeah, I mean, you know. But still, I mean, it's really cool that they did that. It's also cool that they're still updating it, which I actually did see somebody complaining on the Steam forums about, you know, why do you have a team? Why are you, letting anyone work on Dying Light 1 when there's still so much to do with Dying Light 2? It's like, I mean, some of the stuff they were saying for Dying Light 2, it's like, it's not that bad. It's not perfect, but it's not that bad, and the explanation is actually totally legitimate. I mean, yeah. That they made the point that Dying Light 1 is a different engine than Dying Light 2, so it's not like we're taking people away from Dying Light 2. It's a completely different beast to work with. And eventually, yes, that team, which is small, will be, brought over. But right now, they couldn't contribute to Dying Light 2. They don't know that version of the engine. Which very much is a thing. I mean, engines, even though I think that it's the same, their Chroma engine, I think is what they call it. An in-house engine, it still is. It's like they, built a new version of it. You don't get to enjoy easy cross-compatibility of game engine unless you're somebody like Epic that can spend all the money in the world, it seems, in order to ensure easy compatibility there. But even then, I mean, there's some people that it's like, Unreal Engine 4 and 5, it's like they're not going to go to 5 because, nope, I need to learn too much, and there is work that would need to be done to translate stuff. And that perfect. That's going to be easier for Epic to achieve, as I said, because they have the money and the engineers for it. I could believe with Techland, because in-house, and it's not like they sell the engine. I don't think they sell it. I don't think they would necessarily have the engineers working on some of that stuff. It's like they needed to serve their purposes. They don't necessarily worry about others. That would include easy compatibility. So yeah, they would have to, work on onboarding those team members. Still working on Dying Light 1, work on getting them up to speed with Dying Light 2 could take a long period of time. I don't know. I could definitely believe weeks, potentially months, probably more like weeks. Alright. And let's get out of here. Yeah, so now let's talk about Dying Light 2 with the performance analysis. I worked on for so long. It's finally come out. And I'm just, you know what, actually, let's see about hitting that. That looks like that could be milk. And I like hitting those because they're places I can stop and get stuff. Like a helicopter. So, yeah, oh man, I don't even know how long I worked on Dying Light 2. Getting the data. Getting the data actually wasn't necessarily that intense. It was more so building the applet. Applet. And then rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding. Excuse me. So that's the thing I've been talking about on and off in one way or another for a while, where you can actually interact with the data in it if you want, the data that I collected. So if you want to see, a percentile other than, 1%, 99%, 0.1%, 99.9%, if you want to see something other than that, you can just type it in and it'll give it to you. You want to turn off the median because you don't care? Go right ahead. You can do that. You want to have values other than 60 FPS for the target performance? You can put that in and it'll give it to you. I spent a lot of time trying to get that all to work right. And that's just talking about the tables. There's also, and you can also change what data it shows. You can also change the grouping in there. So the changing, you can turn off seeing the GTX 770 data, which is fair. That GPU is so old, NVIDIA doesn't even support it anymore. I'm surprised, though, I was able to still have it work with the newest drivers and collect data with it. Go figure. I actually did better than I would have expected to as well. I mean, I wouldn't want to be playing on it. If you're rocking a GTX 770 still, please upgrade. It's like that is... It's going to be worth upgrading.
Find him!
Come on. There we go. But you can also change the groups, and that is actually something I think a lot of people may enjoy. So I typically record, 3 different locations, and I keep that data separated. Well, what I set up in there is it is possible for you to basically say, you know what? No, don't separate it out by location anymore. I just want to see at given quality, given GPU, given API, I want to see that data. And that's what you'll get. It'll group that together. You use those groupings, and now you can get the mean just in general for how that GPU performed with that API and that quality setting. And I even have that set up, sort of. Well, it's actually not sort of. It's completely, just with one exception. For the graphs.
It's a tough job, but somebody's got
That one exception is the coarse graph, because I don't think it makes sense to group that data together. Yeah. Unfortunately, though, the graphs, I couldn't enable. The free hosting service has a 1 gig limit on the free account. What, 1 gig RAM limit? That's not enough to draw a graph when you've got, 300 meg worth of data or so. Actually, I think it was more like 212. But it's still, that's a lot of data. And it can't handle drawing the graphs for all that. Can't handle the table, though. That's what's linked there. But I also made a forum thread to talk about it, which no one's responded to, sadly. Kind of hard to get feedback when, no one gives feedback. Okay, guys. But I also I made a version. It's actually what I was initially using to test with. That uses just the data from the review. But that is small enough that it can still make the graphs. So I'm sorry, I just still find it funny. It can't draw graphs. It takes too much RAM. What? I also have that there and shared a link to it so you can see the graphs there. And I also made a video. Actually, I have 2 videos. I haven't made one of them live yet because I want to do some other stuff first for it in concert with it. I actually don't mind talking about that. I'm hoping to do that this week, but anyway. Yeah, I've got my 5 graphs in there, so it's a summary graph. And that you can change the grouping on. Coarse graph, you can't change grouping there. Frequency graph, you can change that. QQ, you can change that. And consecutive difference, you can change that. And actually, I just, today, and I did deploy it, made a change. There's now 2 versions of the consecutive difference graph. And let me just say, the reason why there's now 2 is because I have this applet. It's because I made this applet. It's only because of that. Because being able to interact with the graphs so directly, you start seeing weaknesses. Now, I'm not going to add this to the normal scripts. I don't think it's necessary. But it will be in the app. So, what I've added, well, what occurred to me is, these graphs are meant to measure stutter, which I define stutter as a sudden change in frame time, right? I think that's completely reasonable. What occurred to me, probably because I added a kind of neat feature already, for telling you how much data you can draw on these graphs with brushes. Not all graphs, but many of them, including the consecutive difference graph. I set up so that you can draw on it and it will tell you how much data is captured in the brush, is within the rectangle you draw. I don't know how much longer the helicopter's gonna last, but I definitely wanted to get as much destroyed with it as I could. But what occurred to me was that the stutter experience is going to be dependent on your current frame rate. And consider that definition. Basically, a 4 millisecond change at 20 FPS is going to be at 20 milliseconds for frame time. It's going to be a very different feeling than at 10 FPS. 10 milliseconds. I'm sorry that I'm crossing those up. I really should not be.
Requesting air support!
So what I did to try to account for that is I now have a percentage version of the graph. By that I mean instead of the y-axis, the y-scale being the just the difference between frame n and n plus 1, it is now, well, with this graph, because it's two versions of the graph, it is actually going to show what the percentage is for what percentage corresponds to that difference for that that frame. Literally, I just take the difference and divide it by the frame time, which does make the graph somewhat nonlinear, but it still is a I think some people may find that more informative for the experience. Man, I am just having no luck with these helicopters, am I? Holy shit.
Mind if I borrow this?
I was mentally prepared for it to be 1, 2, 3, but it wasn't. I knew that was coming.
I'm going around.
Perfect.
Don't let him get away.
So yeah. Now, unfortunately, I can see the stats for usage on the applet, and it seems like that's which is disappointing. Not just because I literally worked on the thing for a week, but also because I do think it's a very powerful. I'm saying I know I'm going to continue using it because it's really useful. I mean, I can get information out of it immediately and be able to know, oh, I should include, like, looking at this data versus that data. It can help me find certain patterns that, I mean, yeah, I could find other ways, but that it's just going to be easier to find it this way. And I also want to work on it, I'm working on another one. another applet with a different purpose. That, well, I don't know how much anyone will use that either, but it's again one that I think will be useful. I think will be interesting. I don't care if nobody actually uses it. I am not gonna be doing.
It was worth every minute.
In fact, I could probably stop now. The wingsuit in Just Cause 3 is so useful. Man. It makes such a difference, because it's like, you know, trying to just, you know, go around on the parachute here. It works, but it's not that much fun. The wingsuit, oh, that's a whole nother. Just trying to think if there's anything else I can really mention. I don't know how much it's worth mentioning the applet. I mean, it's. I hope that even though there hasn't necessarily been a whole lot of interest in it, that I'll still find some way to be able to continue to use it publicly, not just, you know, my internal uses. With articles going forward, it's a wonderful tool. And in a way, it actually really surprises me that no one... that so few, I should say, have actually looked at it, but... I don't know, maybe it could also just be one of those... Because I know this is so much the case for it, that things I find interesting no one else does. Like, it almost makes it seem like I am the world's most unique person, because nobody cares about anything I care about. And that's not as much exaggeration as you may think. Like, I mean, it's also, you know, just like, I don't have any friends that have interest in video games, or in data, or in analytics and graphs. I'm not even sure if I have friends that read. I mean, yeah, they can read, but it's like, you know, I write stories. Do they read them? I really don't think they do. That's okay, though. But it is, you know, just what I have to, you know, live with. And so it's like, yeah, nobody's, you know, looking at this tool that I spent so long on that's really an amazing, powerful thing. It's not that, it's par for the course that no one looks at it. I shouldn't be laughing like I am, but I am. Now, let's see if I can avoid getting spotted and then come back to clear. I'm not going to avoid because of the damn helicopters coming. You know, now that I think about it, there might actually be a way in Just Cause 3 to clear your alert level. It might actually be possible to pay for it. I don't remember. Because that really is a strong weakness here. Strong weakness? Yes, it's a significant weakness. How's that? Is that better? That they just, like, send the entire army after you very rapidly. And it's like, how am I supposed to, you know, do stuff? Because I'm just like, okay, yeah, I can fight them, but it's when I'm on the ground and I'm surrounded, I have to run away. I can't run around and pick stuff up. So, yeah. Another thing about the applet, though, is I'm thinking I may try to, you know, like, look for jobs that would have me using some of this stuff. And I do think that these applets would be kind of a. It's like, how am I going to apply for the job? I show them that I made this. I mean, on the one hand, I do know that I'm probably at some disadvantage because, like, when I write a game review, that's several pages long. I know. And I can believe that a lot of people don't bother reading all the way through. Okay. I'm sorry, I like writing. I enjoy writing. And I do think that there is, for some of the stuff, for some games, there's that much to go through. Actually, no. I'm done. But, it's like, a lot of places would probably be like, no, we don't want anyone writing something that long. But this tool, I can see places being like, you know what? No, we want that. That's awesome. Oh, I didn't even say what it was, the rant ramble video that I made. I don't mind mentioning. I know it'll stretch this out longer. Sorry about that. But, basically it's, I do look at some TechTube channels, and every now and then I'll see, ones talking about, comments talking about how, hey, we want to see frame time graphs. It was actually also funny, I saw one recently where it's like, praising their stats. It's like, I don't think you really know what you're saying. Hey, I'm not saying that their stats are bad, but it's like, the majority of TechTubers, all TechTubers, I think would be just about as accurate, only use like a mean and a 1% low. That's it. And it's like, that's not enough to really praise stats for. That's two stats. There's lots of data that you can certainly praise. It's like there's some that, oh man, they put in the time to have so much data in there. And they also put in the time to research and know what they're talking about. They deserve praise for that. But anyway, coming back to my point about the asking for frame time graphs. I work with frame time graphs. I've been working with them for years. You don't want them in a TechTube video. That video I made was like an hour and 20 minutes long. Actually, no, I think it was closer to an hour and a half. 90 minutes. Because like I was making the point that even cutting that in half, because I didn't script it, even if you cut that in half for, like, you scripted it, and so you curated down all that, that's still 45 minutes. I personally feel that a TechTube video, best at like, 15 minutes. Like 12, 15 minutes. You can do 20, depending. You can even do a half hour, depending. I mean, it's like, what is this topic? Is this something that's really interesting? Are you somebody that can make it interesting as well? You can deliver it in an interesting way. Then yes, you can do that. But 45 minutes for basically going through just a bunch of graphs for one game. Yeah, I don't think anyone would want that. So that's what the point of that video is, to also show off my applet. Hey, I don't mind admitting that. I think it's an awesome tool. To show that off, but also just show that, yeah, you can't do frame time graphs in a TechTube video. It's gonna make the video way too bloated, way too long. No one's gonna want to watch it. But I do also make one point, and that is that the QQ plots that I use, that is something that you don't need to include those. But I would very much enjoy if reviewers, if they're going to use a 1% low, that they make those graphs and they look at them. They look at the QQ plots, because that way you can know if 1% low is actually meaningful or not. Dying Light 2, 1% lows are meaningful. You're not to the outliers yet. The outliers are a little bit further. Not much, like 0.7, 0.6, I think would be as low as you could go. But I have seen games, it's been a while, though, since I've seen them, that are actually, no, at 1% low, you're in the outliers. Like, the outliers in that they finally turned and are really off from the main data. That's, you don't want to use 1% low there. But you have no way of knowing that without looking at something like a QQ plot. Because that really contextualizes any percentile. So yeah, no, you don't need to include those, but it's better to look at that and to know, yes, the 1% lows are useful versus having no idea and only ever using 1% lows. Because, I mean, it's 1% of the data that you're talking about there. That's not a significant amount of the data. You're making assumptions on the larger behavior on that value, which some ways you can, but without verifying that that value is still representative of the data, that's a critical assumption that if it's not true, your whole argument is falling apart. And that one graph answers the question. And it is. I will say that if you find that, 1% isn't good, but 1.5%, 2%, that is, all right, use 2%. Use the 2% low. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all arbitrary. It really is. Outliers are defined by a statistician running the data. It's not defined that you're not going to find a textbook that says, yes, at this point, we have outliers. It's like, no, you don't. That's not how it works. You're basically saying, yeah, that data right there, it's outlier. Why is it outlier? Because I don't like it. I mean, you're not going to be that flip with it. But like for me with the QQ plots, it's like, yeah, you can see right here how it's suddenly, and we have this turn towards longer frame times. That turn is where it's like, okay, they're now becoming outliers. And sometimes it's a full-on step. It's just like goes on, line, step by like 10 milliseconds. And now you've got data again. That's clearly going into outlier. So it's like that, easy to defend, especially with that plot. But it's all arbitrary. 1% lows are arbitrary. What isn't an outlier, arbitrary. It can be reasonable, but it still is arbitrary. It's up to the person's, I guess I shouldn't say arbitrary, it's subjective. Subjective might be a better way to put it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that graph gives you the reasoning. So, yeah. Alright, I have certainly blathered on long enough, so I shall see you next week. Goodbye.